see some women with us today, which is very encouraging. Thank you for being with us. And I want to thank our amazing panelists for today. Veronica Murgua, AI and GovTech leader at the Dubai Future Foundation. We have Alexis Jean-Baptiste, advisor at Women in AI. And Elina Silan, Regional Program Manager at the UNDP Regional Hub for Arab States, and Dr. Bharat Vagada, Head of Policy and Regulatory Affairs at Orido Group. So as you all know, AI is moving faster than we could have ever imagined, which puts more responsibility on us to make it sustainable, to make it properly regulated and equitable. And in order to do so, women are a pioneer in this field and should have a role when it comes to building AI so we don't repeat past mistakes. And according to a 2024 Stanford AI Index, only about 22 to 26% of the global AI workforce are women. So today we'll discuss why closing this gap isn't just about equality, but it's an advantage for sustainable knowledge markets. This is why I'll begin with Veronica, a living proof that women are not just users of AI, but they are the ones building it today. So beyond fairness, what are the strategic advantages for women's participation in AI leadership at this stage?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Katharina, for the question. Bismillah. I think we're at a time in the development of AI where it is crucial that women are involved, specifically because as women we nurture and we have a deep relation to nature. We are very grounded. We're able to stay stable and grounded in complexity, and not only we have a long-term vision and foresight, but we keep ourselves accountable. And I think that's the most important part. I think it's really important to be able to support other women, especially right now, and definitely continue. And the skills that we have are not soft skills, they're systemic skills. And they're important to be put at the forefront. And it's an opportunity right now to give to other women and empower other women to be able to lead strategically and to be able to join the discussion. And the time is now, because not only are we building foundational systems, we need these systems to be resilient. We raise our children to be resilient. And it's the same thing for AI. We're able to have that long-term, with that long-term foresight, but being accountable of how we're doing it, being ethical, having fair judgment and accountable for what we're going to be doing, then we are able to build a resilient system that is inclusive for all.
Thank you. I'm going to move to Alexi. In the private sector now, and especially in a woman-centric consumer-facing industry like beauty, so are women more represented, and how is AI really affecting your work nowadays?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, salam alaikum, everyone. So, it's very important in terms of AI to be very close to the full representation of the society. For us, it's very, very important. So, I would say you have two parts of the answer. The first one is inside the organization. It's very important for us to have a better decision making. So we need to be to have at the end of the day a better AI product. So it's very important to represent the society, as I said, and to have all the type of sensibility and sensitivity inside the organization to have a better understanding of the full ecosystem we are working on. This is one. Outside the organization, same. We need to better understand our consumer and what they want, to provide exactly what they want when they need it. So that's why by having this different type of sensitivity and different gender and having also equality is very important for us more than ever because we need to deliver what is required on the right time.
How did the consumer's behavior changed when it comes to AI or during this AI area that we are witnessing now?
Two things. AI is about personalization at scale. So we are getting a lot of data from different touch points, and so we are able to better understand the data, and we come back to human skills for the sensitivity and about the understanding and the insight we can get from it. And the second part is using this insight to make either better product or better services, and to serve in a better way our consumer.
We'll talk more about this point, but before this, I want to go to Elena. From the UNDP's perspective, working across Arab states, what does an inclusive, sustainable knowledge economy look like in practice, and what role does women's leadership in AI play in getting us there?
Thank you for that question. I think from UNDP's perspective and the UN as a whole, I would say sustainability is also about inclusion, it's about fairness, it's about transparency, it's about participation, accountability, so many of these elements. And I think that when we collectively design the sustainable development goals. It was a different time. We had many different aspects, but I think the speed of the transformation that we're witnessing today was perhaps not an aspect that we considered at the time. So I think this is really important to sort of see that what does inclusion mean now in this new era, and how can we quickly transform ourselves into doing that. And of course, women's participation, anybody's participation, because I think inclusion is global, right? It's not only about women. Of course, we're talking about that today, but I think it's about inclusion ultimately. And it is a prerequisite for sustainable development. Without inclusion, there is no development.
Of course, but are there fields where women can outshine when it comes to artificial intelligence?
To be honest, I'm not sure if I can answer that specifically, but I think that there are two aspects that are really important. One is women's role within AI, so within tech, within digital, and working on AI. So ensuring that we have not only participation, but leadership in doing that. I think the other aspect that is really important is that women working on other important aspects, so such as policy or in the civil society, are empowered to also have skills within AI and tech so that they are able to inform policies with that aspect in mind.
I'm going to ask Dr. Bharat if you think women are getting the empowerment they need in order to be part of this new world that we are witnessing now, and then how can we ensure AI supports sustainable, inclusive knowledge economies for women and men alike?
Thank you. It's strange being two males on a woman in AI panel, but I guess that's the inclusivity that we talk about. Right? I wanted to set the scene, and it's a good question. So there's a serious disparity in terms of women in AI. In addition to the women missing out on what could be a great career moving forward, is also going to be potentially leading to an imbalance in society in a threefold way. One, economically. So if we don't have women in AI, that's a big chunk of your workforce that suddenly are not available in an increasingly AI-driven world. Culturally, I think Elise mentioned that to get a concrete, unbiased view in the world, you need women's input into that process, including the policy-making area. So we definitely need that. And the other one is obviously socially. If we don't actually have women participating, we will just increase the existing biases in society. So I think it's potentially dreadful on three fronts. Today, women comprise something like 20 to 22% of the AI talent globally. But when you're looking at senior levels, that drops to 15%. So it's clearly a problem that we have. And the other angle is women actually comprise the vast majority of the jobs that may be displaced due to AI. So back in the 80s, when we had personal computers, who got affected the most? It was women. They got affected the most. They lost their jobs. They had to retrain. Once they retrained, they couldn't find jobs. They dropped out of the labor market. And we're in that situation again, where actually, I think 40%, no, actually 60% of the jobs that could be displaced would affect women. So I think
Maybe
not
in
only
the administrative roles.
exactly a lot of the administrative roles, the clerical roles
Mm-hmm.
that women are engaged in would be the
Yeah.
ones that may be displaced because of AI. So that's clearly something that I think we need to really worry about. And I think even if we were looking at some of the so-called more advanced countries, so the European Union espouses equal opportunities, they have pro-equality policies, but even in the European Union, two countries that have achieved 40% female AI representation are Latvia and Finland. But actually, if you look at someone like Germany, Frankfurt has like 19%. So even in the countries that are leaders when it comes to normal equality, they are missing out when it comes to AI.
And here you mentioned a very important point that I want to ask Veronica about. How can we make sure women are not left behind when it comes to AI? Because as Dr. Bharat was saying, a lot of job opportunities will be lost. So women need something else. Where do you see most potential for women, and how can we encourage them to enter new roles?
I think what is most exciting about, from my experience and my own like personal perspective, and seeing what the UAE government is doing, is putting women in leadership positions at the forefront. We're the first country in the world to announce chief AI officers. And it's incredible to see a lot of these chief AI officers not being men, but also women, and seeing them head up their divisions, whether it's with the Dubai Health Authority or other government entities. So I think having a clear direction from a top down is very inspiring, and it's very exciting. But in terms of where there's potential for women, I do believe in AI literacy. It's really important. One of the things that that had a privilege to work on is an initiative called the 1 Million Prompters here in Dubai, and it's available publicly. And it's just a basic capacity building program. It's a free course for anyone to learn. So I think women have not only it's our mission to educate ourselves, but our families and our friends and our communities. And we have such incredible communities that we can see as benchmarks. We have Women in AI around the world. We have incredible chapters here in the region, and they're spearheading capacity building. So I think these are great opportunities
Yeah, I think
to
we are
focus on.
lucky that being in Dubai, which is a lab for the future. And here I'm gonna move to Elena, like working across the Arab states. You know, they're not all as fortunate. So how do you work with the UNDP, with all the organization, to make sure all countries get a fair participation when it comes to the future?
This is a really good question, and actually, I think going around here today, the lead word has really been collaboration, 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 and I think this is really important. As UNDP, we're trying to work on two levels, and I think they're equally important. One is the hands-on support, like the field work, but also the policy support that are provided to countries in the region at the country level. A lot of that work is around supporting government and building policies, planning, linking up to the sustainable development goals, engaging with communities, and so on and so forth. The other aspect is around regional collaboration. This is around regionality principles like knowledge sharing, sharing of best experiences, capacity building, visibility. And here, as UNDP, we really function as a convener. So bringing together government, bringing together private sector, but also working with important entities like Women in AI, for example, to support them to really build these networks so that they're not only a voice but also like a practical machine that can support policies moving forward.
This is when it comes to implementing the policies. What about the educational side, where you put the first steps for people to be encouraged and arrive to this later on stage?
Yeah, I think even on that. So, for example, now working together with Urido and other partners on building policy frameworks, so a digital policy framework for the whole region that also looks at aspects of skilling, building education, and so on and so forth. So, looking globally at what are the examples that we can draw upon, what are the case studies, and trying to see how we can bring together countries and also leverage on each other to doing that.
Since you mentioned Uridu, let me ask Dr. Bharat on the projects you're working on now in order to arrive to this stage with UNDP, with other maybe also organizations.
Yeah, so we've been looking at how do we try to bring all the Arab countries to a stage where we can call them developed in terms of the digital economy. And what you need for that is obviously a whole ecosystem approach. You can't look at one area, try and focus on it, make that great, but then ignore all the other parts. So what we wanted to look at was how do we look at this from a policy perspective, but looking at the whole ecosystem. So you can have a great AI system, but if you don't have people connected with a mobile phone, then it's not used to them. So how do we look at it from a more holistic point of view so that everybody has equal access to the technologies and can benefit from those technologies? So that's what we're trying to look at and trying to give practical examples of what can be done from a government regulatory perspective in terms of pulling the right levers. So that was the key things that we're looking at from a technology deployment perspective. I think the other thing is we talked about skills development, etc. And if you look at a lot of technology diffusion and skills diffusion, a lot of it goes down to education in STEM, right?
True.
It also goes to how many women are in R&D positions, because that R&D position ultimately leads to entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship leads to more economic activity, more employment. If you have a woman CEO, the chance that you'll have more women in the organization. So I think we have to feed it back into ultimately how can we get more women into studying STEM subjects, how can we get them into R&D, how do we get them onto entrepreneurship, because that will then feed through into the larger
Is it a
skills.
governmental point, or it's more in the other organization that should work on this?
If you look at the countries where there's a lot more women in AI and also technology, they're mostly East European countries. And that's the Soviet background where they pushed a lot of STEM kind of academic studies and pushed that in for women as well. And so that's carried through. So if you look at some of the East European countries, Latvia, Lithuania, etc., 50% of the AI is driven by women. And that goes back to STEM and pushing that in terms of the education system as well.
So now I'm gonna move to Alexi with a question that I believe most women care about. So when it comes to beauty, and in an industry like beauty, data, AI can either reinforce stereotypes, so or break them. How do you ensure making beauty standards diverse and human? Because nowadays, people are, or women especially, they are addicted to some filters, to a picture that doesn't always look like them. So AI is somehow, it can either shift the point of view or make it right. It's very critical, especially for young ladies, young women who want to see the best out of themselves. How do you work in regulating this point exactly?
Okay, two things. I just want to come back to your previous question. Just one point on this. Just saying that we all talked about education and empowerment. This is very key. Just a few words about it. This is exactly what we have done across my career in different organizations. It always starts with education first. So we had several programs. We had for example, AI for AI for all, AI for experts, and AI for leaders. It was very key to have dedicated programs for each part of the organization. We can definitely apply this, and this is what we are trying to do with Women in AI, to have the right programs for the right people. So this is key because you need to fit in one program or to be surrounded by people having the same interest. Then secondly, you have empowerment, and then we are used to say it's from a classroom to boardroom. It's not just about having women working in AI, but leading in AI. This is key for us, and so then it creates this kind of role model funnel that you can feed, and so they can definitely see themselves, project themselves in the future. So this is more in terms of career. And to go back to what you said just now, it's definitely a challenge, a good one, because as you said, a lot of companies have been provided back in the time a lot of filters, for example, on the different social networks and platforms. But I think, especially in the local markets here, we are coming back to more natural beauty, way more than before. We are going way more into categories such as skincare than makeup. Which is like I think coming back to the roots, which is key, and going away from filters, for example, which is kind of not necessarily the reality.
Want to look like robots.
Exactly. Plus, we don't want to we don't want to all look the same at the end of the day. So we are all unique, and this is definitely a privilege to be unique. So we need to celebrate this part instead of looking all the same on the social network. So that's why I think definitely we can see the dynamics is to go back to the roots and to be unique as we are.
So we all agreed about the important role women should be playing nowadays. This is why I want to ask Veronica, from your experience in the public sector and GovTech world, what specific barriers do you still see for women, both entering AI-related roles and progressing into leadership?
That's a very good question, and it's when you talk about what barriers or what challenges or these are the challenges I see for myself and what I've seen in like the past 15 years of working in this space. One is the myth that you have to be technical to work in AI. I am not a developer, but yet I have the ability to shape and contribute to the conversation, to engage with government entities. I am not a technical person. I do understand the frameworks. So I think any woman here doesn't not have to be discouraged because you are not in a technical field. These are things that you can learn easily, but women are also implementers. We are translators, and these roles are just as important as research and development. Yes, we need to implement, and women are very, very good at this, whether it's strategy or implementation. I think also we have some role models, but it's still very limited. We still need to identify role models across all industries of AI so that our children can look up to them, so that we can look up to them, so that we're able to say, these are leaders in AI, and this is where I can get inspiration from. This is my path. This is my North Star. And thirdly, I believe that just that the technology, innovation environment, it has to be designed around caregivers, around mothers, around caregivers of elderly people, whether it's families with children of determination. It's really important that the environment is designed around women to enable them to be part of the conversation, because women have the talent, like there's no doubt, and we easily learn. We have the passion, so we can learn these skills, but we need to create a better environment to make it inclusive and to create the time for these women.
And here I'm going to ask Elina how we can break these stereotypes so women can feel more involved. And like, just like Veronica said, we can have a role. And some women, maybe they're not encouraged enough. They think it's only about tech work, only about mathematics, while it could be other things.
This is the million-dollar question. Applies to a lot of areas, I would say. I mean, to be honest, I think when it comes to women in AI in this region, at least my feeling in the sense that I see is that there are a lot of women. Like there are a lot of women. There's a lot of women working on like community solution, you know, solving practical problems around healthcare, around climate. But I think we are not. There isn't enough visibility for these women. You know, these are not the women who become leaders or who are seen. They're working to solve, I think, issues. So visibility for me is a large part of it. I think the second one is about speaking up, right? So trying to encourage women to speak up. Like Veronica is saying, it's not about being a technical person. You don't have to be that. And I think that's an important message to pass, you know, and I think the people that are willing and able to speak up also for others, you know, pave the way, be the trailblazer, be the person who's okay to sort of move forward. And I think we talked a lot about education. I think also nurturing the talent that we have. So seeing talent, being able to reskill, making sure that the women that are skilled working in important areas can be reskilled or talented within these areas. I think also from UNDP's perspective, we need systems and structures that allow women to move forward. So the policies and the ecosystem around it is incredibly important as an enabler. And I think finally really to to always be a champion. I think Bharat was saying why, why are the men here? We need also male champions. We need champions everywhere. So I think a call to action is really to be a champion, to connect with others, to try to really sort of push forward and to come together on.
So let's ask the champion himself. How do you make sure that you have equitability when it comes to women and men in your organization and in your field?
I think that's an interesting area, and I mean, as Orido, we're really trying to push to get women into senior positions. Um, it requires a lot of effort, and I mean, Elise mentioned a good point, which is, and Veronica, that actually you need to cater for the challenges or the lifestyle that women have in terms of caring for children, caring for adults, parents, etc. So I think we need to create a workforce, a work environment that allows for that. And I think what we have, unfortunately, in the region is a very rigid system. You come in, you clock out, and actually what we need to move is a much more flexible, outcome-orientated work environment rather than a process oriented. Today we have a process oriented. You have to do this during these
The
times.
old patterns doesn't apply anymore
It doesn't
with
apply,
this speed that we're going through.
but the region still is somewhat a little bit behind in that sense. I think there's a need to change that work environment so that actually create those opportunities. And the other thing to say is when you talk about AI, there's the development of AI, and then there's the consumption of AI, right? So we talked a lot about the development, but there's a lot of consumption.
Sure.
And so to make sure that a lot of I talked about job displacement, but to make sure that the women don't lose those jobs, we need to make sure they can use AI in their workplace and train them and retrain them so that actually they know how to use AI. They don't necessarily need to develop AI, but if they can use AI, they're already driving efficiency in terms of what they're doing anyway. So I think we need to have those two perspectives in mind when you're talking about women in AI.
Yeah, about changing some work strategies that we've been doing for the past thousands of years. I'm going to move to Alexi. If you can give us any recommendation for companies in the region, something concrete they can implement maybe anytime soon to advance women's leadership in AI and data and to make sure that the present looks like where we're going in the future.
It's a very good question, very interesting. So first of all, it starts with a vision, a strong vision you need to have as an organization to set and to define the North Star. This is what we've done, and all the organization I've been lucky to work with. And then secondly, you need to, because AI, for example, is not only, as you said, a technical job. AI for AI doesn't mean anything. It has to be applied. And so that's why the kind of bridge between research and applied is very key. Meaning that for us, we decided to define what is the skill set of the future, okay, concretely, and to split into between soft skills and hard skills. Hard skills, we have e-learning platform, we have also boot camps, we have like hackathon and so on. Yeah, they can so they can learn on their own. They can also apply through hackathon, for example, and then soft skills. It's also about communicating what you develop, communicating also the changes, what is the added value of AI, because when I join company, usually they are very scared and there is a lot of myth about AI. So they think that AI is everything and nothing at the same time. So first you need to demystify AI. So it's very important to do this step as well. And then finally, consumption of AI is key for big organization because I believe it's AI plus you, meaning that it will be definitely how you make the best of AI to be even more efficient as a professional woman or not only, but you need to be more efficient and to use the tool. It's like not being willing to use computers today. It would be nonsense, of course. So AI is here to stay, of course. It's more than mandatory in the workspace now to be used. So I think concretely, just in short, to summarize what I said is definitely set the vision first, communicate the vision, define the skill set of the future, and then apply a strategy against it. Soft skills, hard skills. Hard skill is easy to get, more easier than we think. Soft skills is the human interface we still have on our side, and that's why AI brings us back to human skills. What can be done by AI for us is a doer, and what can be done by AI should be done, but what is left on us is definitely the human part and the human interface.
So, Elena, as we've seen in the private sector and as well as in the governmental work, there's a big focus on AI. And here's the thing that maybe you can give us your experience in how does effective cross-sector collaboration look like when it comes to AI, and what are the fields where you can collaborate with the private sector in order to get a better result?
I mean, I think when it comes to this, it is a challenge, and we all need to sort of come to the table with the intention of having this. It's the same in the private sector, the same vision and the same goal. I think when it comes to digital and AI, it's about sharing resources, it's about sharing data, and it's about sharing expertise and experiences. And often we succeed on one or two, but to really share it all, I think has been challenging at different levels. I was very happy, I have to say, today. We had a previous roundtable where actually we had policymakers from Jordan and Egypt. We had private sector from UAE, from Abu Dhabi. We had civil tech, and people really came to the table with these three things. And I think that is the key and what we must push forward. Also being very cognizant of what are our roles and responsibilities, because when it comes to AI, there are many responsibilities. And I think we really need to think about that and to see our roles and to help each other fulfill our roles, to hold each other accountable to those roles. And I think, this is really important.
So, and when it comes to regulations, what is really needed to make sure AI is well regulated?
I mean, I think one of the things, also as Baharat was mentioning, is really having these strong frameworks in place and then putting the resources into that. And as everybody says in this region, data is a big issue. Data is not available. We aren't sharing data, and we need also transparency around the data to be able to measure progress and to be able to set ourselves goals as well as we move forward. So I think that this is really important, and also sharing again the expertise and the experiences. And I think it's really helpful to hear the experiences and the expertise from the private sector, and also then be transparent around the sharing of resources also into the public sector to be able to move forward. And I think coming to an event like this, we will talk a lot about multilateralism. I think tomorrow will be a big question around what does multilateralism look like today? What are the resources we have in hand, and how can we think differently around that? Because we need to.
So I'm going to move to Veronica. If there are women in the audience who aspire to lead AI teams or strategies, what's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you earlier in your career?
Thank you for that question. One piece of advice. I would say don't be afraid to take the time and to really educate yourself. There's the exciting thing about AI, there's so much education available. And at the same time, to not be afraid to ask to be part of the table and to be part of the conversation. I think that applies to all fields, but especially within AI, I think it's extremely important. And to not underestimate that our perspective and that our natural skills, our systemic skills as women, do make a difference. I've seen it make a difference in policies, in implementations, designing programs. It does make a difference. So definitely not to underestimate ourselves, but to champion ourselves. Sometimes, yes, we need men to champion us, but we do need to have that confidence to champion ourselves as well. I think it's really important. And if you see a woman championing herself, inshallah, there will be other women supporting her. And this is what I've seen in the community.
Women supporting women. And then within our last questions, I'm going to ask Alexi, how can you, if you have any advice about collaboration between private and public sector to make it more expanded?
So I think this type of collaboration are key. It has been said all day long. It's all about collaboration. We have this kind of bridge between research and applied, and this is definitely what we need to do more and more in terms of between private and public sector. Because it will, we don't know what we don't know. So as a private, for example, actor in this sector, it's important to work also with public organization to better understand their reality, for them to better understand our reality, and also to work in terms of governance, regulation, and so on. This is very key to have this type of bridge. I never saw like a collaboration that was not positive. It's usually the case.
Do you have a specific example that's really encouraging?
I would say I think we have a lot of example in the UAE in different cities. I'm thinking about Abu Dhabi, and so you have different organizations providing this bridge between public and also private, which is also more close to what I said earlier, which is research to apply. It works pretty well. So we know that it's mandatory, and we can do always more. I'm sure about it.
Dr. Bharat, we want a last piece of advice you could give through your career and your expertise.
I think if we look at some of the leading countries, so not all of them are leading, but Singapore, they're quite advanced when it comes to AI. You could look at London, they're quite advanced when it comes to AI. Netherlands, and there's some things they share. And one of the things they share is the government works with the private sector to create apprenticeship programs, to train the leaders of the future in terms of AI, and a large proportion that is reserved for women. And I think when you're talking about the public-private partnership model, it's really about skills development, training opportunities that can be created. And actually, sometimes in the UK, they've actually changed the curriculum. So they brought in like T-levels, technology qualifications. So trying to move people away from this pure academic qualification to a more hands-on experience, which may be more suitable for certain people. So I think there's this opportunity for a lot of countries to think about, let's move away from the traditional academic approach, go to university, get a job, to a new apprenticeship type of skill set, working between the private sector and the public sector to create that. And we see that in Singapore, we see that in the UK, we see that in the Netherlands. So I think if we look at case studies of countries that have done well, that seems to be a good one to look at.
I'm going to ask Elena about this specifically when it comes to taking role models and applying it in other countries that are maybe not that fortunate.
Yeah, I think this is really important, and also really what we're trying to do now, to use case studies to show that progress. I think as Dr. Baharat is saying, we see the successes also in countries where, to be honest, government has been in the lead, but government has not done it alone. And I think we need to both recognize and push for governments to be in the driving seat, but for them also to create this environment of collaboration and openness, transparency and trust. And here we do have a challenge in this region, which is the lack of trust in between citizens and governments, and really something that we're trying to accelerate. But I do think that here we should see AI as an opportunity to do that. So really, how can we leverage on AI to be an accelerator or an enabler for creating these systems for all, inclusive systems for all?
So, Veronica, what's one priority for the development community and international organization to ensure?
Again, it's for me, it's access to education on AI. I think it's really important. It should be a mandate for all economic empowerment programs for women, and especially in less fortunate countries. And I think to really question ourselves when we develop an AI policy or a strategy, I think it's just really interesting to pose that question. When we're talking about gender inclusivity or inclusivity of multiple cultures, how does this affect women? How does this affect men? Because it will have a different impact. And the same thing with different cultures. I think it's important to keep asking ourselves the just the outcome of the final solution that we're working with when we're developing, whether it's services or policy strategies or products. I think it's important like that.
Alexi, when it comes to the women behavior, did you find any change when it comes to different countries as a consumer behavior?
Okay. So yes, as a global organization, of course. So for me, I'm based in the Middle East. So from a country to another, you have like small, of course, changes, but not massive ones, to be honest. That's why also we are organized this way. We have like head of data or AI by region. It's very important for us to be local relevant, and so that's why we are organized this way. Then, in terms of the way we are operating, is we are relying on local data, of course, and so that's why we have local insight, and so we are always turning insight into action, into product, into services. So that's why we try, and I think we do it with a certain success to be local relevant. So this is the way for us. By using local data, we are locally relevant. We get rid of all the bias that can come from, let's say, a global organization.
I think we covered the whole subject. I don't know if anyone has anything to add or if we have any questions. Please.
Thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge and insights from your expertise with us today. I have a question to Dr. Baharat. I already understand that everyone agree that capacity building when it's come to rescaling, education, R&D, and all of that. Just I had also a discussion before the session with Elena. We talk about how we can see more women in C-level, not only in technology, overall, not only AI and technology. That's when you speak very roughly about it. Like after the R&D, we go for entrepreneurship. And for that entrepreneurship, we need investment really. Women are lack not only in our region, even globally. I think we are less than 1% when it comes to investment. It's okay, I understand there is some reasons which is from women, their side, but also the most VCs has been controlled by men. So they keep investing in Bing. And this is not related to our region because now today also, if you recognize all the global companies, Google, Meta, and others, who's the CEOs? Who's the founder? So people, they invest in them, then they grow, they become unicorns, and then now they're leading the world, not only, they are more than beyond the governments. Now who's really directing all the technology world and economy? It's these companies. So how we can really, as Urido, for example, what's the solution they see that when it comes to empower women with, seeds investment or a specific program for entrepreneurship to rise more entrepreneurship? I'm talking, for example, Urido focus on GCC or Qatar to see more entrepreneurship females from Qatar. In UAE, we have many because we are lucky that especially as a city, Dubai, many women, even from all the region, they always prefer to come and make their HQ Dubai, because of the openness and all of the resources. But as of now, even as women in AI, we just recently launched Women in AI Qatar, and our ambassador is ex-Urido as well. So what's companies like you, Urido, I'm positioning you like Itasalat in UAE. You have very big role globally and locally, and also in your country. They design a solution or initiative to empower the entrepreneurship female specifically. Thank you.
Thank you. A great question. So if I just step backwards a little bit, I think there's a lot of education required. If you look at a lot of the research from Harvard and Stanford, MIT, the companies that tend to have more women on the board tend to perform better in terms of return on investment, etc. So there's evidence that shows if you have a diverse board that includes women on the board, they tend to perform better. But that message isn't really getting out to other companies. So actually there's a lot of work required to get that message out, that actually you're not doing it because you want to be nice, you're doing it because it's going to affect your profitability. If you can get that message across, that this is good for your bottom line, a lot more companies will do it. But at the moment, that message isn't getting through. If you say you need to do it because there's an equality target, etc., you won't achieve that. I think you have to show some bit of selfish interest to say this is good for your your return on investment, and we need to get that message out. I think in terms of what companies can do, I think yes, even companies as big as Ooredoo, Etisalat, there's only so much we can do, right? Within the companies, we try to promote women into senior positions, give them roles that they may not traditionally have had, but I think it requires a government push. So creating an incubator, putting the funds in for startups, making sure that a certain proportion of those funds are reserved for female-led entrepreneurship will drive that ecosystem, and providing the mentorship and coaching, everything that goes around it. So I think that the government has a big role to play, to be honest. I think as private sectors, we can do our bit, but it's going to be a small bit.
Most of the investment come from private sector.
Well, it depends what level. So a lot of the seed funding, a lot of the really early stage, it tends to be from government. The government have got grants, they've got some funding, etc. We as Ooredoo, we also have some seed funding, but it's minuscule when you compare to the government, basically. So I think the governments have a bigger role to play to make sure that entrepreneurship is pushed out to the country as a whole. And as companies, we have a role to play. But like I say, it's a small role. If all the organizations did that, it's great. But you really need a government push for this, really. And we see that in Qatar. I'm sure you got the UAE government investing a lot into the seed
By the way, I
investment.
have a startup. My startup based in Qatar, not in UAE. Even I'm from UAE, but my startup there because we got support. For example, as you say, government, they give a free license for 5 years. They give some funds for some research with foundation there for research. But I'm talking about to establish now in Qatar, I'm not seeing a lot of female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And this should not be like this, because when we talk about Qatar, always we position them after Saudi and UAE when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I know it is within the government mandate. Government now, they are trying to give, through Web Summit and other programs, some support, but they cannot fund. I'm just straightforward with you. I'm seeing this private sector playing a whole 80% because they need to have kind of VCs and sponsorship, so specific programs to enable this entrepreneurship. Because, for example, companies like you, I'm sure you are doing merging and acquisitions, right? Yeah. You are investing within certain equity. I'm sure, I don't know, you have that insight. I'm not aware about it. But I'm just not taking example of Ooredoo, but your thoughts as, techie groups. And with that, I will close. I will not interrupt.
Thank you. No, I get where you're coming from. I think there's a bigger issue in the region, which is we don't really have private equity companies, venture capital companies. What we have is seed investment from friends and family, and then you have bank financing. We don't have the actual layer you need, which you see in certainly in Silicon Valley and some of the European countries. We don't have that. So there's a different gap. Not only for women, but generally entrepreneurship, to be honest. I think when it comes to women, like I say, as Ooredoo, we are trying to bring our women employee up the ranks. One of our very senior people in M&A is a local lady who kind of runs the M&A basically. So we're trying to push that. But I just think when it comes to the layer that is missing, that layer has to be filled by government, I think, at the moment, because at the moment there's nothing here. Either the government puts in the right policies in place to encourage VCs, or they need to provide the funding, one of the two.
Unfortunately, we come to an end now. Thank you all for the insightful information, and thank you for your presence with us. And also, as we can see, we have a lot of women interested in the AI field. It's not just nice to have when it comes to AI, it's a must, but it was nice having you all. I want to thank the panelists again, Veronica Murgoa, AI and GovTech leader at the Dubai Future Foundation. I want to thank Alexis Jean-Baptiste, advisor at Women in AI, Elina Silan, regional program manager at the UNDP Regional Hub for Arab States, and Dr. Bharat Vagadi, of course, head of policy and regulatory affairs at Ooredoo Group. Thank you all, and thank you for joining us.